Hey, what's up coders, welcome back to my channel. In this video you will see how to create charts using chart_Flutter plugin, and the data that is used to display the chart is not static. In fact, this data is retrieved from the backend, and for the demo purpose I'm using Firestore. Well, a couple of weeks I had created a video related to animated charts. And in that video, it was a simple implementation of chart in your Flutter application. And to keep it simple, I just used static data. And I did receive a couple of requests from you guys asking if I could display the data from the backend and use it in the chart. So I thought I'll come up with a video, and here it is. Well, moving on to the UI, it is a very simple and straightforward UI, which is the bar and the pie chart with the x-axis and the y-axis, where one of the chart indicates the sales of the year, another one is the daily task. Just to give you that variation, I created two charts. So the plugin that I've used here is charts_Flutter plugin. So there's nothing much to describe about the UI. The focus would be more on the implementation part, where the first one would be about the plugin, and the second would be how to set up the Firestore, and then with the implementation, that is connecting the Firestore with your Flutter application. So let's see all this process step by step. Talk about the plugin that I've used is charts_Flutter, which has been developed by the Google team, and it's one of the simple and interesting plugin that I always use when I'm using charts in my Flutter application. And the installation is pretty simple. Use the dependency and use the import package. And if you click on the repository of the GitHub, you get the GitHub link, and you can also check the online gallery, which gives you the different kinds of charts that you could actually implement using this plugin. So I've handpicked the bar and the pie chart. So you could try with other charts as well. And in fact, if you click on it, it will also give you how to implement it. So that's how easy it is. And if you find any issues, you can also report it. So make sure you get the plugin package and the details. And the next setup would be the Firestore. Now, if you had seen my video related to Firestore with Flutter, where I had explained in detail how to set up the Firestore and retrieve these article details and display it in the Flutter application in a list view. So this was one of the videos related to it, and I've also added the errors you come across while setting it up, and also where to log in and how to set up the project. So if you're already aware of it, you can skip this process and directly move to the implementation of this video, or you could watch this video, or you could watch the brief steps that I would be showing you right now. So all I do is go to the console.firebasegoogle.com and then create a new project. So when I create the new project, it's going to ask for the package name. So if you're looking for the package details, all you have to do is go to Android folder and then look for Android manifest.xml, and this is your package name. So just grab the package, whatever you have it in your manifest file details, grab that, add it over there, and then you would have a google-services.json file generated. So please do download the file and add it inside your app structure. So all this step is being explained very clearly in this particular video. So I will leave a link in the description. So please do watch this video if you're very new in understanding how to connect your Firestore with Flutter. And once you have done that and set up your project, be displayed with the screen asking how do you want to create your project. So I have used Firestore. You could also use real-time database. So choose this and then move on to the database. So when you move on to the database, first thing is set the rule to the test mode so that you can edit and write. All right, so in the collections, I have created two categories. One is sales and one is task. And for the sales, I have created a document using the year, and the year has three properties. One is the color val, because I wanted to give different colors to my bars, and similarly for my pie chart also I wanted to give a different color. I could actually add it, but I wanted to keep it everything from the database. So I've added a property called color val, sale value, and the year. Similarly for all the years I have these values. So this way there's nothing static, everything is being retrieved from the backend. Similarly, for the task also, I have added all the task details, and each task contains three details. One is the color, task, and task detail. Now it's up to you and your use case how you want to work on these fields. And for demo purpose, I've just kept it simple so that you can first understand the basic approach how to connect to the Firestore and display it on chart. Then you can try different complex documents or collections and how to retrieve it. All right, now moving on to the package details, I've used, as mentioned, I've used charts_flutter, and this is the plugin that I'm using while recording this video. And make sure that you have these details, and then also ensure that you have your build Gradle file updated with the dependencies with the Google service, and your app level with the Firebase core and even the Google service. So once you have all these details, then you are good to get connected with your Firestore. And in case if you did not get these points, I have explained all these steps in detail in this video. So please do watch this video in case if you are very new to Flutter and Firestore. So once you're done with the setup, now we can move on with the Flutter application and build this UI and see how to connect it. All right, so moving on to the implementation, first I have this main.dart file. So in this, the first thing that I'm going to cover is the sales page, which is the bar chart. So here you have the years in the x-axis and the sale value in the y-axis, and I have these details also available on the top just to represent which color represents which year for more detailed representation. So it's very simple with just a chart displaying in the entire screen. So for this, what I've done is I've created a material app, then the primary color. Since my app bar, the primary color of my project is same for both the charts, and I've used a home with a sale home page. So first thing what I do is I create a model class. So here I've used sales. So the first thing is I'm going to create few parameters. One is the value, year, and the color value. So whatever I have it in my Firestore. So if you see, I have color val, sale val, and year, sale year. So these values I'm using in my model class so that I can get those details from the backend. So next I'm going to use a from map, which is used to check if the values that is retrieved from the Firestore is null or not. If not, then it's going to retrieve those value and assign it in these properties. So this way you can get these value. So I have added this method to string just to ensure that to see if I want to debug and see if I'm retrieving the values from the backend or not. So I could just use this to print my values from the backend. So this is your model class. Now we'll move on to the main class, which is actually going to display these values onto your Flutter application. All right, so moving on to the implementation part, I've created a simple stateful widget, which is the sales homepage. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the data that is necessary to generate that chart details. So I'm going to create a list, and a list called series bar data, and then pass this series bar data and add all the properties like the domain, color, data, the label, accessories for the chart. So this is where I'm going to generate the data. That is, generate the data for the chart. Once I generate the data, then I will add the generated data to this chart. So first, let's see how to generate this data. And I've also added the necessary package details. So the first one is the Flutter Charts, the chart_Flutter plugin, then the Cloud Firestore, and then the sales.dart file, which is my model class, and then the material.dart. So these are the basic packages that you have to import. So here I'm going to use charts. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method called First, I'm going to create another list to hold all the details that has been retrieved from the Firestore into this list. So it's going to be of type sales, and I've used my data. And then I'm going to use a method called generate data. So this is the one that actually creates the data for the chart. And I'm going to pass the my data into this function. Now, this function contains the series bar data. So to this, I'm going to add my chart. So first thing, we are going to use the list. And these have few parameters to be added. So the first one is charts.series. And inside this, you have domain FN. So this one is your x-axis value. And there's another one which is the measure FN, which is your y-axis value. Add the values that you would like to display on both the axes. So first thing, I'm going to use my sales value. That is the model class. So I'm going to say sales underscore. And then I'm going to use the big arrow or fat arrow and then say sales dot. So here I want the sales year. And this one uses the string value. So to do that, I'm going to use toString method. Similarly, again for this, it's going to be, and then I'm going to use the color property. So for the color property, I'm going to do is I'm going to use sales dot color val, and then I'm going to close this. But here, if you see, it says the argument is of type string. So if you look at the color value, it is of type string. So I have to convert this to int. To do that, I'm using int.parse. So we have got the color value of the chart, the x-axis and the y-axis. If you want, you can add a couple of properties like ID, and I'm going to give sales. And then you also have data. You need to pass the data. So what is the data here? So the data comes from my data. I'll show you how to get this data from the Firestore to this my data. And then if you want, you can add the label accessory. So there you go. So we have created the generate data. Now this will generate the data that is required to build the chart. Now let's move on to the building of the chart. So first what I'm going to do is I have a build method with a container. So I'm just going to remove this and directly add the scaffold and the app bar. So app bar is a pretty simple, straightforward app bar with a title. And then in the body section, I'm going to add a method called build. Now let's create the build body method. Now what does this build body method does is, this is where it actually gets the data from the Firestore. So I'll show you how to do that. So it's a widget. So this method returns a stream builder, another method which actually builds the chart. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So let me first write down the code and then explain you what it exactly does. Alright, so what I've done here is I've created a stream builder and then I've added a stream property. Now this is nothing but the Firestore instant collection. So the name of your collection. So in my case, if you look at the name of the collection, it is sales. So I have to use exactly the same name here and then say snapshot. Then next comes my builder. Now inside the builder, I'm using my context and the snapshot. What am I going to do with this snapshot is, first I check if the snapshot contains some data. So if it does not have any data, what we could do is you can either pop up a dialog, print a message, or show some kind of indicator. So in my case, I'm just going to use a linear progress indicator and then just display it. If not, that is if data is present, what it has to do. So if data is present, first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it into my list of type sales, and then I'm saying sales, and then I'm going to take the snapshot, data, documents. So this is how I get the document, and then I map it. I say sales dot from map. Now what is this from map? So this from map is nothing but the model class. So it's going to take each individual values from my Firestore, that is sales val, sale year, and then add it to these property. So that's what I'm doing here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say return, and I'm going to build the chart. So it's always good to keep everything separate rather than adding it in one function. So this function is exclusively added to retrieve the data from the database, and then I have this build chart function, which is to build a chart with the sales details that I'm retrieving from my Firestore. So we are done with the build body. Now let's move on with the build chart. Build chart, what I would be doing is simple container, and then I would be adding an expanded widget, and then inside that I would be using a bar chart. So I'll add all these details and I'll show you how it looks. All right, so the method is called widget build chart, and the properties that I'm passing are few things. One is the build context and your list sales value. Now there are two things that I'm doing here. One is to create the chart, another one is to add this data into my generate data. Now first thing is I'm going to add my data. So I'm going to add those sales value that I retrieved from the database to my data, and then also I'm doing another one. I'm going to add the same data to my generate data. Now what this my generate data does is it creates the data that is required to generate the chart. So it is doing that also simultaneously. Now once it has generated the data, then we are creating the chart. Inside this container, first thing I'm using a center because I want the chart to be displayed in the center of the page, and then I'm using a children array. No, I'm using a column because I want first the title and then the chart to be displayed. So it's just one below the other. So let's use the column widget. And inside the column widget, I have the children widget array. So the first thing is the text. Text is nothing but sales by adding some styling property to it. And then I'm using a sized box just to give that extra spacing. Okay, so once we are done with our sized box, now comes the chart. So for this, I'm going to use an expanded widget. Now inside the expanded widget, the first thing is the child property, and inside this I'm going to use the chart. So what kind of chart are we using? So here we are going to use a bar chart. So I'm going to say bar chart, and then first thing is you have to pass the details. So the details of the chart is available in series bar data. So what series bar data is? It's a list which contains all these values, which is your x-axis, y-axis, and the color properties. So that is what I'm passing into my bar chart. So if I do this also, I'll get a bar. But what if I want to add some extra more properties like animation, or if I want to add some kind of legend values into it? I'll show you how to do that. So first thing is animation, which is true. And then I'm going to give an animation duration of 5 seconds. So when I demo this or when I run this application, you can see the animation part. So I'm just giving 5. And then in the behaviors property, there are a lot of other properties that you could add. So you can definitely look into the Flutter doc and see what are the properties available. So as of now, I'm just adding only few properties, that is each color and the year that has to be displayed here. So if you want another row, you can definitely add it, and some spacing. So here I've added the legend values and the color, which is the purple, and some font family and font size. So this detail is related to the detail that gets displayed here. So what I've done is first I have generated the data that is required to display the graph, and these details are being retrieved from the backend. Now how do I get it from the backend? All I have is the build body method, where I try to connect to the collection, which is the sales here, and then add it into my sales list from map. So once I have those details, I'm going to pass it to my build chart method, where it actually builds the value with the help of generated data method and then display it in your bar chart. So this is how you do it. So let's build this and quickly see how it looks. So there you go. So you can see that animation. So if you do not want this animation, avoid those properties. So you could see that it is giving for the duration of 5 seconds, and you could see your legend values here that you display and the X and Y axis. So this is how you connect your database values and display it in your chart. So I'm going to change few values just to see how it looks here, and or if you want, I can yeah, just change the values and see how instantly it reflects on the app. So here on the sales value, instead of 5, I'm gonna give 20, and then this is gonna be 10. Let's keep it 10, and then I'll make this 60, and this I'm gonna keep it 10 again, just to see that how the variations appear. So there you go. You can see that the values have changed, and you can see the change also appearing instantly on your app. So this is how you display bar chart. Now, moving on to the other chart, which is your pie chart, it is also the same way retrieving the data. The only difference lies in the chart, which is whether a bar chart or the pie chart and the values. So I've used the same title, the same structure, which is the title first and then the legend and then the chart, and retrieving the details from the chart is also similar. So I'm just going to walk through the particular code, but I've also added this project on the GitHub. So if you want to see how to work on it, you can definitely use the code on the GitHub, fork it, tweak it, and if you have any issues with this, please leave a comment and I'll get back to you. And yeah, so let's move on to the task chart. So first, let's see the structure of the task collection, which is simple as task and the task details here, and each of them has a color val, task val, and task details. So it's similar to your sales value. The only difference is in the chart. So for the task, I have used a different page called task home page. Before that, I have used a new model class, and the properties are like task val, task details, and color value, which is the same property that is available for the individual task here. Once you're done with this, you have used the same method, which is from map, and then trying to get those values, and I've used a toString just to displace these details in case if you want for some debugging purpose. So this is about your model class, which is same as your sales.dat file. Now, moving on to the task homepage. The first thing, use the package, which is your Firestore data. Thing is the generate data, and I've used a series pie data instead of a bar data here. And here, instead of sales, I've used task. So the rest all remains the same here. And the color value comes from the backend as well. Next, so I use an app bar, which is of title, text, task, and then build body. So in this build body is where it gets connected to your backend and retrieves the value and add it into your map function and then adds into your list. So make sure that the collection name is task here, because that's the name of our collection here. Once I have the task details, I've added into my task. Now next what I do is I use build chart. That's where I add all my details into the chart, generate it, and then display it on a chart. So I go to build chart, add those details into my data, add it to generate data. So this is one generate data method which actually generates the raw data into a chart data. So once I have this generated, then I can create my chart. So I've used a container with a column widget, the text first to display the text, then a size box, then the expand widget. So the only difference lies between the sale and the task chart or the bar or the pie chart is in this section where I've used pie chart instead of bar chart. And the data is here is series pie data. So the animation remains same, animation duration, and here the behavior property is slightly different because I've used another property called default render, because you have you can display values inside it and how it renders and these radio kind of color icons and the details. So it's little different. So that's the only difference between your pie and bar chart. So here I've used the datum legend. I've said that I want a horizontal first, desired max row 2, so that it doesn't break here and move on to the next line if you have more tasks. Then your styling of those text, so I've given a purple with this particular font and 18. And also this is optional, so I've said that I want those details to be rendered inside my chart. So the values, whatever, I want it to be rendered inside my chart, so that's where you give this property. So this is how you create a pie chart. So I'm going to quickly do a build, and you can see it gets app as well, and the values also get displayed. Yeah, so this is how you work on chart and in combination with Firestore and display details on your Flutter application. It is pretty simple and straightforward. All you have to do is get your Firestore project set up correctly, use the package details, and the rest all is simple. That's it for this video. So hope you enjoyed it. If you do, please give it a like and do subscribe, and if you find this informative, please do share it. Thank you.